The Texas sun was beating down on our backyard that Sunday afternoon, making the air shimmer above the grill where Uncle Hank was flipping burgers. I was carrying a fresh pitcher of lemonade from the kitchen when my brother Garrett's voice cut through the cheerful chatter like a knife through butter. "She's been drugging Dad's food!" The pitcher nearly slipped from my hands. Every conversation stopped. 20 pairs of eyes turned from Garrett to me. And I watched our relatives take actual steps backward, as if I'd suddenly transformed into something dangerous. My cousin Shelby pulled her kids behind her. Aunt Francine gasped and covered her mouth with both hands. Even the smoke from the grill seemed to pause mid-air. Garrett stood in the center of our family gathering like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. In his raised hand, he held a prescription bottle from my purse, which sat overturned on the picnic table. His designer polo shirt was pristine despite the heat, his expression triumphant and disgusted in equal measure. "I found the pills in her purse," he declared, shaking the bottle so everyone could hear the rattle of medication inside. "Multiple prescriptions, some crushed up in baggies like some kind of drug dealer. She's been putting them in Dad's food without telling him." My father, Walter, had been laughing at something Uncle Hank said just moments before. Now his face went pale, his hand trembling as he set down his beer. The confusion in his eyes was worse than any accusation. "My food?" He looked at me with such betrayal that my heart cracked. "Deanna, you put things in my food?" "Dad, it's your medication," I started to explain, but Garrett wasn't done with his performance. "Look at this." He pulled out another bottle, reading the label with exaggerated shock. "Risperidone. That's an antipsychotic. She's been giving our father antipsychotics." He turned to our assembled family like he was revealing evidence of a murder plot. "And this one, sertraline, an antidepressant. She's keeping him sedated so she can control him, probably steal his money." Aunt Nadine, who'd been setting out potato salad, dropped the serving spoon with a clatter. "Oh my God, Walter, how long has this been going on?" The circle of relatives tightened, but not around me. They formed a protective barrier around my father, as if I might lunge at him with a syringe at any moment. These were people who'd known me since I was born, people who'd celebrated when I graduated nursing school, people who'd brought casseroles when my marriage fell apart. Now they looked at me like I was a stranger, a criminal. "Someone should call the police," Jerome muttered, already pulling out his phone. "Wait!" I reached for my own phone, desperate to show them the doctor's orders. The care plan. Anything. "Those are Dad's prescribed medications. He has trouble swallowing pills, so Dr. Morrison said to crush them. It's all documented." But Garrett snatched my phone before I could unlock it. "How convenient that you have documentation. You probably forged it all." "Tessa," he called to his wife, who stood frozen by the dessert table. "Take Penny inside. She doesn't need to see this." His 7-year-old daughter was clinging to my father's leg. Her pink sundress with tiny flamingos on it that she'd been so proud to show everyone now crumpled from her tight grip. "No, I want to stay with Grandpa." Penny's voice was high and scared. She'd never seen the adults like this before. "This is insane," I said, my voice shaking with rage and hurt. "I've been here every single day for 8 months. Where were all of you when Dad forgot how to use the microwave? When he called me at 3 a.m. thinking I was his mother? When he nearly burned down the kitchen trying to make tea? Where was everyone then?" Garrett's voice rose above mine, addressing our audience. "Classic manipulation tactics. Make yourself indispensable while slowly poisoning the victim. I'm calling Adult Protective Services right now." He pulled out his phone with a flourish. "They need to know about this immediately." My father stood up from his lawn chair, swaying slightly, his face a mask of confusion and fear. "The man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd walked me down the aisle, who'd held my hand through my divorce, now looked at me like I was dangerous. I don't understand. Deanna, why would you do this? I trusted you. You're my daughter." That's when everything shifted. In the chaos of accusations and fear, in the suffocating heat of that Texas afternoon with the smell of burning burgers filling the air, my 7-year-old niece tugged on her father's shirt. Her small voice cut through the noise with 6 words that would change everything. "Daddy, should I tell Grandpa about your special candy?" The backyard went dead silent. 8 months earlier, I'd loaded the last box into my Honda Civic and taken one final look at the apartment I'd called home for 3 years. The divorce papers were signed, the furniture divided, and my ex-husband had already moved his new girlfriend into what used to be our bedroom. At 34, I was moving back into my childhood home, but not for the reason anyone would expect. Dad needed me. The diagnosis had come on a rainy Tuesday in November, early-stage dementia, the neurologist said, as if those words didn't just rearrange our entire future. Dad had been forgetting things for months, but we'd blamed it on stress from Mom's death 2 years prior. When he called me thinking I was my mother, when he couldn't remember how to get home from the grocery store he'd shopped at for 20 years, we couldn't ignore it anymore. "I can manage," Walter had insisted that day, his pride intact even as his memories slipped away. "I don't need a babysitter." "You need family," I'd told him, already mentally packing my life into boxes. "And I need somewhere to land after the divorce anyway. We'll be roommates." That first Sunday after I moved in, I reinstated our family barbecue tradition. Mom had started it 20 years ago, and after she died, the gatherings had slowly faded. But routine was good for Dad, Dr. Morrison said. Familiar faces, consistent schedules, anchor points in an increasingly confusing world. Now, 8 months later, our backyard hummed with conversation every Sunday afternoon. Uncle Hank and Aunt Nadine always arrived first, bringing their famous coleslaw and unsolicited advice about Dad's care. My cousins Shelby and Jerome would come with their kids, who ran through the sprinklers and reminded Dad of when we were young. Aunt Francine, Dad's sister, held court at the picnic table, dispensing family gossip like communion wafers. And then there was Garrett, my older brother, the investment banker who lived 40 minutes away but might as well have lived on Mars for how often he visited. He'd sweep in once a month, always late, always distracted, checking his phone between bites of hamburger. His wife Tessa would make small talk while their daughter Penny became the only bright spot in Garrett's visits. The way she'd run straight to Walter, calling out, "Grandpa!" with pure joy. This particular Sunday had started better than most. Dad woke up clear-headed, remembering not just my name, but the neighbors' names too. He'd even helped me prepare his famous potato salad, the one with the secret ingredient he'd whisper to me conspiratorially each time, even though I'd watched him make it 100 times before. "Deanna, did I take my pills this morning?" he asked as we diced celery, the 3rd time in an hour. I showed him the pill organizer, each compartment clearly labeled. "Right here, Dad. All done for this morning." The medication routine had become our morning ritual. Donepezil for the dementia, sertraline for the anxiety that came with forgetting, risperidone for the agitation that sometimes flared when the confusion became too much. Dr. Morrison had prescribed them all, adjusting dosages every few weeks as we searched for the right balance. When Dad developed dysphagia, difficulty swallowing pills, the doctor showed me how to crush them and mix them into his oatmeal or applesauce. "Document everything," Dr. Morrison had said. "Take pictures of the medications, keep a log, save our email exchanges." With dementia patients, family members sometimes question care decisions later. Protection for both of you, so I did. My phone contained hundreds of time-stamped photos, detailed logs, emails from the doctor confirming every adjustment. I kept Dad's medications in my purse during gatherings, a habit born from the time he'd accidentally taken a double dose when he forgot he'd already taken them. As the family arrived that Sunday, Dad held court in his lawn chair, telling his favorite fishing story about the bass that got away at Lake Travis. Everyone had heard it 50 times, but we all listened like it was the first. These good days were precious, becoming rarer as the months passed. "You're the best daughter a man could ask for," Dad said as I brought him his special lemonade, the one with his afternoon medications carefully dissolved inside. He squeezed my shoulder with hands that still felt strong, still felt like the hands that taught me to throw a baseball and change a tire. Garrett's BMW pulled into the driveway at noon, chrome gleaming in the Texas sun. He emerged already on a phone call, gesturing apologetically as he continued talking about market predictions and portfolio adjustments. Tessa air-kissed my cheek, her perfume overwhelming in the heat, while Penny burst from the car like a tiny hurricane in her pink flamingo sundress. "Grandpa, I learned a new card trick. Can I show you? Please." watching Dad's face light up at his granddaughter's enthusiasm, seeing him remember her name without hesitation. I felt that familiar mixture of gratitude and grief. These moments were what made everything else worth it. The sleepless nights, the repeated questions, the career I'd put on hold, the life I'd rearranged around medication schedules and doctor appointments. I had no idea that in just 1 hour my brother would stand in this same backyard and accuse me of poisoning our father, turning our entire family against me with carefully orchestrated theatrics that would reveal much more than anyone expected. I was in the kitchen, slicing lemons for a fresh pitcher of lemonade when I heard the crash from outside. Through the window, I saw my purse on the ground beside the picnic table, its contents scattered across the grass. Garrett stood over it, holding something in his hand, his face twisted with an expression I'd never seen before. "What the hell is this?" His voice carried across the yard, sharp enough to stop every conversation. By the time I reached the patio door, he'd already gathered an audience. He held up one of Dad's prescription bottles like he'd discovered a bomb in my bag. The medical tote I always carried had fallen out. Clear plastic bags of crushed medication visible to everyone. "Everyone needs to hear this," Garrett announced, using the same commanding voice he probably used in boardrooms. I knocked over Deanna's purse by accident, and look what fell out. He shook the bottle dramatically. Pills, crushed pills in baggies, prescriptions that aren't even in Dad's name. Uncle Hank set down his spatula at the grill, burger forgotten. "What are you talking about, Garrett?" "I'm talking about my sister drugging our father." He held up the sertraline bottle, reading the label loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is an antidepressant. She's been crushing these up and putting them in his food. Dad, did you know about this? Did you know Deanna's been putting drugs in your food?" My father's hand froze halfway to his lemonade glass. The clarity he'd had all morning seemed to fracture, confusion clouding his features. "My food? Someone's putting something in my food?" "Dad, it's your medication," I said, stepping forward, but Garrett moved between us like he was protecting him from me. "Stay back," he said, then pulled out another bottle. "This one's risperidone. That's an antipsychotic. She's giving our father antipsychotics." He turned to our relatives, like a prosecutor addressing a jury. "Ask yourselves why a daughter would secretly give her father mind-altering drugs. Control? Money? His life insurance?" The effect was immediate. Aunt Francine gasped and grabbed Uncle Hank's arm. Shelby pulled her children behind her, as if I might be dangerous. Jerome's wife started recording with her phone. Our family barbecue had transformed into a public trial, and I was the defendant. "Those are all prescribed by Dr. Morrison," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "Dad has dysphagia. He can't swallow pills. The doctor told me to crush them." "How convenient," Garrett sneered. "Where's this doctor's order? Do you have proof?" I reached for my phone, desperate to show them the emails, the care plans, the dozens of documented conversations with Dr. Morrison. "It's all right here. Every prescription, every dose change, everything documented." Garrett snatched my phone before I could unlock it. "Of course you have documentation. You've had 8 months to forge whatever you needed. Tessa, take Penny inside right now." "No," Penny protested, wrapping her arms around Walter's leg. "I want to stay with Grandpa. Daddy, you're scaring everyone." But Garrett wasn't listening to his daughter. He was building to something, feeding off the shocked faces of our relatives. "Think about it. She moves in, right after her divorce. Isolated Dad from his friends, made herself indispensable. Classic elder abuse pattern. Isolated him? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm the one who reinstated Sunday dinners. I'm the one who drives him to his poker games every Wednesday, to church every Sunday, to lunch with his brothers every Friday. All opportunities to control him," Garrett shot back, "to make sure he's properly sedated." Cousin Shelby stepped forward, her face troubled. "Deanna, this does look really bad. Maybe you should leave while we figure this out. For Dad's safety." "For his safety." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. I check on him 3 times every night. I cut his food when his hands shake. I clean him when he has accidents. I hold him when he cries for Mom. Where were all of you? "We trusted you," Aunt Nadine said quietly, but her tone suggested that trust was past tense. Dad stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the concrete. "I don't understand what's happening. Deanna, You said the medicine was vitamins. You said it would help me remember. Dad, they are your medications. You forget sometimes, but we go over them every morning, remember? The pill organizer with the days of the week? But Dad's confusion was complete now, the stress of the situation undoing his morning clarity. I don't remember. I don't remember anything. Why is everyone yelling? Call Adult Protective Services, Garrett announced, pulling out his phone. And the police, this is criminal. You can't be serious, I said, but looking around at the faces of my family, I saw they were. The same people who'd praised me for my sacrifice, who'd said they didn't know what Dad would do without me, now looked at me with suspicion and fear. I'm calling now, Garrett said, starting to dial. This ends today. That's when I noticed something. As Garrett raised his phone, tilting his head back with righteous authority, I caught a glimpse of white residue around his nostril. My nurse's training kicked in, recognizing a sign I'd seen too many times in the emergency room. Suddenly, his agitation, his paranoia, his theatrical performance, it all made a different kind of sense. My hands trembled as I pulled out my own phone from my pocket, the backup I kept for emergencies. Stop dialing, Garrett. Let me show everyone the proof right now. More forgeries? He scoffed, but I was already pulling up my email, finding the thread with Dr. Morrison that went back 8 months. Look, I said, holding the phone up for Uncle Hank, who'd always been the most reasonable. February 15th, Dr. Morrison writes, due to your father's dysphagia, crushing medications and mixing with soft foods is recommended. March 3rd, increase sertraline to 100 milliliters. Continue crushing method. April 20th, adding risperidone for sundown agitation, start with lowest dose. Uncle Hank squinted at the screen, but Garrett knocked the phone from his hands. She's had months to create fake emails. You can backdate anything these days. Then call Dr. Morrison yourself, I shot back. His number's right there. Call him right now. It's Sunday, Garrett said. How convenient that the office is closed. Aunt Francine stepped forward, her voice wavering. Deanna, even if the prescriptions are real, hiding them in his food seems wrong. We should have been informed. The whole family should have known. I wasn't hiding anything. Dad knows about his medications. He just forgets. That's what dementia does. My voice cracked with frustration. Every single day I show him the pills before I crush them. Every single day we have the same conversation about what they're for. He forgets within an hour, but I still tell him. She's lying, Garrett announced to the crowd. Dad, do you remember any of these conversations? Walter looked between us, his face crumpled with confusion and fear. I don't know. I don't remember. Sometimes Deanna gives me oatmeal. Sometimes there's medicine, I think. I don't know anymore. See? Garrett seized on Dad's confusion. He has no idea what she's been giving him. Cousin Jerome stepped into the circle, his phone out. I'm calling 911. Let the authorities sort this out. Wait, Tessa said suddenly, speaking for the first time. She'd been watching her husband with a strange expression. Garrett, why were you going through Deanna's purse? I knocked it over by accident, he said quickly, when I was reaching for the ketchup. The ketchup's on the other table, she said slowly, and Deanna's purse was zipped closed when I saw it earlier. Does it matter? Garrett's voice pitched higher. We're talking about elder abuse here. I watched him run his hand under his nose again, a quick, unconscious gesture. The white residue was gone now, wiped away, but his pupils were dilated despite the bright sun, and sweat beaded his forehead while everyone else was comfortable in the shade. Garrett, I said carefully, using my nurse voice, the one I used with agitated patients. When's the last time you visited Dad before today? That's not relevant. 6 weeks ago, I answered for him. You came for 15 minutes, asked Dad about his will, and left when he couldn't remember where he kept it. I'm a busy man. Some of us have real jobs. Real jobs that require Sunday afternoon pick-me-ups? I asked, staring pointedly at his nose. His hand flew to his face. What are you implying? Daddy, I need to go potty, Penny suddenly announced, tugging on Garrett's shirt. Not now, sweetheart. But Daddy, you said after I showed Grandpa my card trick and you did your bathroom candy, we could go home. You already did the bathroom candy when we got here, so can we go? The yard went quiet. Even the birds seemed to stop chirping. Tessa's face transformed from confusion to recognition to rage in 3 seconds. "Bathroom candy? She doesn't know what she's talking about," Garrett said, but his voice had lost its courtroom confidence. "The white candy that makes you feel better," Penny added helpfully. "The one in the little bag in your jacket pocket. You showed me yesterday but said it's only for grown-ups." Every head turned toward the porch, where Garrett's designer jacket hung over a chair. "This is ridiculous," Garrett said, moving toward the jacket. "We're talking about Deanna drugging Dad, and you're listening to a 7-year-old's imagination." But Uncle Hank, the retired cop, was already at the jacket. "If you've got nothing to hide, you won't mind if I check." "Don't touch my property." Garrett lunged forward, but Jerome caught his arm. "Just clear this up," Jerome said. "Show us there's no candy, and we can focus on Deanna." I watched my brother's face cycle through calculations, looking for an exit strategy like he was trying to salvage a bad investment. His phone was still in his hand, Adult Protective Services, half dialed. The entire family stood frozen, waiting to see which accusation would prove true, my supposed elder abuse or whatever Garrett was hiding. "This is insane," he said, but his protest sounded hollow now. "Then prove it," Dad said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tension with unexpected clarity. It was his father voice, the one from our childhood, the one that meant the games were over. "Show us your pockets, son." Garrett's hands shook as he reached for his jacket, but not to show us the pockets. Instead, he tried to stuff it under his arm and head for his car. "This is ridiculous. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. Deanna's the one drugging Dad." Uncle Hank moved faster than I'd seen him move in years, blocking Garrett's path to the driveway. "Not so fast, nephew. Your daughter just said something concerning, and now you're running?" "Daddy, are you in trouble?" Penny asked, her voice small and confused. "Did I say something bad?" "No, sweetheart," Tessa said, kneeling beside her daughter while keeping her eyes locked on her husband. "You didn't do anything wrong. Tell Mommy more about Daddy's candy. When does he eat it?" "In the bathroom at home, in the car sometimes. He said it helps him work better." Penny twisted her fingers in her dress. "He showed me the bag yesterday when we were driving here. He said it was like sugar, but special." Garrett's face had gone from red to pale, sweat now streaming down his temples. "She's confused. It was probably an Altoid or something." "Then empty your pockets," Dad said, standing straighter than he had in months. The confusion had lifted from his eyes, replaced by something sharp and paternal. "Right now, Garrett." "You don't have the right to demand anything," Garrett snarled, his polished veneer cracking. "You don't even remember what day it is half the time." "I remember my son," Dad said quietly. "I remember teaching him that lies always come to light. Empty your pockets or Hank does it for you." The standoff lasted 5 seconds. Then Garrett made a break for it, shoving past Jerome toward the gate. But Jerome, who'd played college football, caught him around the waist, and they both went down onto the grass. The jacket flew from Garrett's grip, landing near the picnic table. A small plastic baggie fell out, white powder visible inside. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The baggie sat there on the grass like a grenade with the pin pulled. Tessa made a sound like she'd been punched. "Oh my God!" I stepped forward with a napkin and picked up the baggie, my nurse's training overriding my shock. The powder was crystalline, clumped in places. "Garrett, this is cocaine." "It's not what you think," he said from the ground, Jerome still holding him down. "It's just to help with work. The pressure, the hours, you wouldn't understand." "You brought cocaine to our father's house?" Tessa's voice rose to a shriek. "With our daughter here? You've been doing coke in our bathroom while Penny's home? Get off me." Garrett shoved Jerome away and stood, grass stains on his designer shirt. "Yes, fine, I use occasionally, for focus, for energy. It's not a big deal. Half of Wall Street does it." "You just tried to have me arrested for giving Dad his prescribed medications," I said, my voice deadly calm. "You were going to call the police while you had cocaine in your pocket." The full irony of the situation seemed to hit everyone at once. Garrett, the successful son, the one with the perfect house and perfect car, standing there with grass stains and cocaine, while I, the divorced daughter who'd moved back home, held the evidence of his crime. "This is why you wanted power of attorney last month," I said, pieces clicking into place. This is why you kept asking about Dad's accounts, his life insurance, his investment portfolio. That has nothing to do with this. How much do you owe? Uncle Hank asked, his cop instincts kicking in. Gambling? Dealers? How much, Garrett? Garrett's silence was answer enough. You need money, I continued, and you thought if you could get me out of the way, declare Dad incompetent, you'd have access to everything. The house is worth $800,000, Garrett said desperately. His retirement accounts have over $1 million. He doesn't need it all. He doesn't even remember he has it. So you were going to steal it? Aunt Francine asked, horrified. It's not stealing if it's family money. I'm his son. That money would come to me eventually anyway. Not if you're in prison, Uncle Hank said, pulling out his phone. Cocaine possession, conspiracy to commit elder abuse, filing a false report. Wait! Garrett looked around wildly, seeking an ally but found only disgusted faces. I'm sick, okay? I need help. The cocaine. It makes me paranoid. Makes me do things I wouldn't normally do. Like destroy your sister, I asked. Like turn our entire family against me? Like traumatize Dad during one of his good days? Dad walked over to Garrett slowly, each step measured. When he reached his son, he looked him in the eyes. You were going to let them arrest Deanna? The only person who's taken care of me? Dad, I wasn't thinking clearly. No, Dad said. You were thinking very clearly. You just weren't thinking correctly. The truth hung in the air like smoke from the forgotten burgers now burning on the grill. My brother, the golden child, the success story, was a cocaine addict who'd tried to frame me for elder abuse to steal our father's money. And he'd almost succeeded, if not for a 7-year-old's innocent words about bathroom candy. Tessa scooped up Penny and headed straight for their car, her face set in stone. We're leaving. Now. Tessa, wait. We need to talk about this, Garrett called after her, but she didn't even turn around. Talk? You want to talk? She spun at the car door, Penny clutched against her hip. You've been doing cocaine around our daughter. You taught her to keep secrets about bathroom candy. You just tried to destroy your sister and rob your father. We're done talking. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Daddy's not coming home with us? Penny asked, tears streaming down her face. Not for a while, baby, Tessa said, buckling her into the car seat. Daddy needs to get some help first. As they drove away, the relatives who'd been ready to call the police on me stood in uncomfortable silence. The same people who'd backed away from me in horror now couldn't meet my eyes for an entirely different reason. Aunt Francine was the first to speak. Deanna, I'm so sorry. We should have known. You've been nothing but devoted to Walter. We failed you, Cousin Shelby added, her voice thick with shame. You needed us to trust you, and we just believed Garrett immediately. I wanted to be gracious, but the hurt was too fresh. You've known me my entire life. You've watched me care for Dad every single day, and it took you less than 5 minutes to believe I was a monster. You're right, Uncle Hank said. We jumped to conclusions. We saw what Garrett wanted us to see instead of what was really there. Dad walked over to me, his hand finding my shoulder. The clarity in his eyes was holding, maybe because the shock had sharpened his focus, or maybe because sometimes the universe grants small mercies. I need everyone to hear this, he announced. Deanna shows me every pill she gives me. She takes pictures of them, writes down the time, explains what each one does even when I forget 5 minutes later. She doesn't hide anything. I'm the one who forgets. He turned to face the family. My daughter gave up her life to take care of me. She sleeps on the couch by my room in case I get confused at night. She quit her job at the hospital. She lost her apartment. And how do we repay her? By believing the first accusation thrown at her. Dad, it's okay, I said, but he shook his head. No, it's not. He looked at Garrett, who'd slumped into a lawn chair, his head in his hands. You need help, son, real help. I'm going to lose everything, Garrett said, his voice broken. My job, my family, everything. You're going to rehab, Uncle Hank said firmly. Tomorrow, I know a place. You check yourself in, complete the program, or I report everything to the police. The cocaine, the attempted fraud, all of it. I've been stealing from client accounts, Garrett confessed, the words tumbling out like a dam breaking. Small amounts to cover the drugs, the debts. I thought if I had Dad's power of attorney, I could pay it back before anyone noticed. How much? Tessa had returned, having left Penny with her mother who'd just arrived. How much did you steal? About 200,000. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. My brother, who'd lectured me about being financially irresponsible after my divorce, had stolen $200,000 to feed a cocaine addiction. Rehab? Then you turn yourself in to the SEC, Uncle Hank said. Maybe they'll be lenient if you cooperate. Over the next 3 months, our family rebuilt itself slowly. Garrett went to rehab, then faced federal charges. He got 18 months in minimum security and lost his banking license forever. Tessa divorced him, but brought Penny to visit Dad every week, determined that her daughter would know her grandfather while he still had good days. The family instituted new rules. Sunday dinners continued, but now everyone took turns helping with Dad's care. They created a schedule, giving me breaks I desperately needed. They attended his doctor appointments, learned about dementia, understood what I'd been managing alone. One Sunday, as I watched Dad teaching Penny a card trick, she looked up at me with those bright eyes. Aunt Deanna, I'm sorry Daddy was mean to you. It wasn't your fault, sweetheart. Mommy says you're a hero for taking care of Grandpa. I want to be a nurse like you when I grow up. I want to help people who forget things. Dad looked up from the cards, having followed our conversation. You know what the funny thing is? He said, winking at me. I might forget what I had for breakfast, but I never forget that Deanna saves me every single day. Some things, the important things, they stick. He turned to the family gathered around the table. We almost let fear and accusations tear us apart. We almost destroyed the person who held us together. His eyes found mine. Trust isn't about never doubting. It's about knowing someone's character well enough to question the accusations before believing them. That day taught me something vital about family and aging and the vulnerable position of caregivers. We live in a world quick to suspect the worst, especially when money and mortality intersect. The person changing bedpans and crushing pills becomes an easy target for those who show up just often enough to judge, but not enough to help. But I also learned about redemption. Garrett, now 18 months clean and working at a nonprofit for addiction recovery, sends me letters from prison. He's making amends, one apology at a time. Penny visits Dad twice a week, learning patience and compassion that will serve her well in whatever she becomes. And Dad? He has more bad days than good now, but on the good ones, he tells everyone about his daughter, the nurse who gave up everything to care for him. She could have walked away, he says. Anyone else would have after what we put her through. But love isn't about what's easy. It's about showing up when everyone else sits down. The pills in my purse were never the real story. They were just medicine, carefully documented and lovingly administered. The real story was about how quickly family can turn on each other when fear and greed collide, and how sometimes it takes the innocent honesty of a child to reveal the truth we're all too afraid to see. Every Sunday now, when I prepare Dad's medications, I do it at the kitchen table where everyone can see. Not because I need to prove anything anymore, but because transparency became our family's new foundation. We learned the hard way that secrets, even innocent ones, create shadows where suspicion can grow. But the most important lesson? The people quickest to point fingers are often hiding the biggest secrets. And sometimes the real crime isn't in the crushing of pills, but in the crushing of trust. The betrayal of those who sacrifice everything to care for those who can no longer care for themselves. As I write this, Dad is napping in his chair. Penny is reading him a story he won't remember, and the family that once turned against me now stands guard around us both. We're imperfect, scarred by that terrible Sunday, but we're together. And in the world of dementia care, where tomorrow isn't guaranteed and memories fade like morning mist, together is everything. If you found this story meaningful, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Every family has its secrets and struggles, and sometimes sharing our stories helps others feel less alone. Comment below if you've faced similar challenges with family caregiving, or if you've learned hard truths about trust. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more real, raw stories about families facing life's toughest moments. Your support helps us share these important narratives that too often go untold.